The importance of the US dollar. The recent rise in the dollar over the past little while is kind of a testament to its influence and strength. Those of you who travel know what I'm talking about when I say that a strong US dollar is highly favorable to you, because not only is it really desired in a lot of these foreign countries, the dollar can actually carry you a lot further because you can actually buy a lot more, and it's worth a lot more than their local currency. But if you're not someone who travels a lot, a strong US dollar will actually mean that it's actually cheaper for Americans to live, because they can essentially buy exports from other countries instead of making it locally, where it's probably more expensive. But you know what won't cost you anything and will provide some value? That subscribe button that you should hit, as well as that like button. One other effect this has is that it enables the US to essentially borrow money incredibly cheaply from other countries, because essentially less money is spent paying back that interest, because the stronger their dollar grows, the less they have to pay back. Which, if you combine it with the idea that the US Fed can control the value of their currency and also influence the value of other currencies, you can get up to some pretty crazy shenanigans. Right now, the main point of why the US dollar is so important is because, well, it's incredibly liquid and it's in high demand basically across the entire world. There's very little countries that you can find that don't want to be paid or to deal with US dollars. So it's incredibly easy to buy and sell things all over the world because you have that sort of network and demand across the world. There's also an extra layer of control and security when you deal with US dollars, because these transactions are linked with the corresponding bank, meaning that technically the money hits US soil, giving it legal jurisdiction, and essentially they can force foreign countries to abide by its laws, such as anti-money laundering and anti-corruption laws. These legalities got kind of expanded in a post 9/11 world, giving them the ability to sanction entire countries who were threats or are seen as threats to the United States, which is, I mean, like, the terminology, in my opinion, is kind of broad in a term, because if they were to make a competitor to the US financial system, dollar, or banking system, so forth, whatever, right? They could be barred as well until they basically submit and say that, no, we're not going to make a competitor, we're going to only deal in US dollars. That is essentially what dollar dominance is. Now, this isn't without its drawbacks. It's a very difficult throne to maintain. If you make your currency way too low, maybe because you couldn't export your inflation fast enough to other countries, then other countries might not prefer doing business with you because it's just not worth it for them, right? They're not getting more valued US currency dollars, which hurts its sort of confidence and as well as its strength. Now, if global trade slows down because the dollar value is too high, they're not going to be buying anything, especially if the US had any exports, because it's just simply too expensive. All of this will hurt the accessibility and the demand of the dollar. If the US is unable to get this under control, they lose all the benefits that come with being able to control global trade, be it their reserve status, the preference, the inflation exporting, sanctions, whatever you name it, right? They lose all that power. Whether Bitcoin thinks that they can actually be the solution to this, I personally don't think so. I think that, the CBDC is more likely to be pushed rather than Bitcoin. I think I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched for them to outlaw Bitcoin, but I also think that it's somewhat scary if people do adopt the CBDC, because remember how I mentioned sanctions? Imagine for a moment if you lived in the state with the highest obesity rates, right? And the governor comes out and says that to combat this issue, we found the root cause, which is junk food. Therefore, we've asked anybody that is selling or doing transactions with junk food to be banned or to not do it anymore, whatever, right? And they can exert that control because they control that payment system, whatever, right? Let's say you don't care about that, right? Like, you don't care about junk food and stuff like that. You're not directly affected by this. Let's expand upon that and go further. Let's say you run a company or you work for a company that is related or somewhat linked to it in a very loose way. Like, maybe you're just friends with the CEO or something like that. I don't know, whatever. They make up whatever reason and say, because you've dealt with this person before and we do not like these people associated with these junk food makers, and again, I'm being very vague about this, you can translate why, we're going to cut you off from our financial system. You're going to be sanctioned. You're not going to be able to run your company. You're basically going to be bankrupt within the next day or two, whatever, that sort of thing, right? You can't pay your employees, that sort of thing. That type of thing, I feel, is it's holding someone economically hostage, especially your own citizens, which I don't agree with personally. But again, I'm just some dude on the web. I'm in preference for the physical dollars because I still see a use for it. I mean, what happens if all the power goes out, right? Like, obviously, you can still buy stuff with your currencies because, again, power is an issue. And a lot of this blockchain stuff does need some sort of network to run off of. And what happens if all your electronics go out? You lose all the revenue for the day, week, month, whatever, however long it takes for you to get that power back up. But these are just the examples and stuff that just popped in my head. I'm just kind of rapid fire spurting them out. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you in for the CBDCs? Are you for the dollar? Like, are you in preference for other currencies, whatever? Let me know down in the comments. But just remember, just because you're a day trader doesn't mean you have to trade every single day.